Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to security, business continuity, resilience, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Today, we have a different kind of topic, something that I think is going to be rather interesting, and I hope a lot of business leaders and community leaders really pay attention to this topic. We're going to be talking about accessibility in cyber response and other plans, not just cyber. And I want to welcome to the show today, Justin Merhoff. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me and for this opportunity.
Now, I know we've had a couple of emails back and forth about what we're going to talk about and a little bit about yourself. Could you take a minute or two and tell our global listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got into what you do?
Yes, my name is Justin Merhoff, and I have been doing cybersecurity for 26 years. Before it was started, I'll do a quick fun one. I did it through military service. That's how I broke in. And I was in a military van, communications van in the back of it. And I thought I was Tom Arnold from True Lies. That was my, because I've always been a spy nerd. Not overtly, but I thought I could help the agents. And that's what I thought my job was going to be. And it's not exactly what it was, right? But it did teach me what I ended up doing my whole career, right? So I've been doing cybersecurity, but for 25 years of it, I didn't know about the importance of accessibility. And though working in government positions, corporate positions, I never once, or through security training, through the different organizations, I don't want to point anyone out, but even in the universities, it's not really talked about. So I wasn't aware, and I became aware. And the first thing that came to mind is when we're doing security, and specifically like with the topics that you talk about with disaster recovery and business recovery, right, is making sure that they actually are covered and they know what you're teaching, and that's accessible. And it probably wasn't in a lot of the positions that I was in the document. So we'll talk more about that today, but that's kind of my background. Is I'm so glad that I have my cyber experience so I can help others in cybersecurity become aware of this importance. And this is one of the steps to do that.
Well, great. Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. So my first question to you is going to be a pretty easy one. What is accessibility? Doesn't mean the answer is easy, but for those that may not know, what is accessibility mean?
Accessibility means that things are accessible to be used by anyone. That's not the true definition, but where we're going to be talking about is kind of dabbling in both. We're going to be talking about digital accessibility and accessibility. And where it has importance in cybersecurity is the documentation and the communication that you have about disaster recovery and all of the security programs. But I'm trying to talk to this to assistive technologies to be able to pick that up. And it's not, accessibility is a spectrum. So making sure that things are physically accessible and digitally accessible is going to be points that you're going to want to have for any disaster recovery or business recovery program. The information that you're teaching them needs to be consumable. So we'll talk about documentation and communication. If your policies and procedures are not accessible to assistive technology, and I'm going to use screen readers as an example. It's not the only portion for accessibility, because screen readers are used by many different users, blind users, dyslexic, users that have dyscalculia potentially. And I've even started to pick it up because I can consume more information quicker if I turn up the audio speed of the reader, and I can actually consume PDFs and books about cybersecurity faster than if I was just reading it. So if the screen reader can't read the PDF and see the table that they're supposed to use on who to contact in case of a disaster, then your document is unusable.
Mhm.
So it even goes even beyond that. So the training, the prep, and because that's the key to be success in this field, right? Is we need to be prepped because we never know when it's going to happen.
Right.
We'll call back to Steve Hindle giving me a shout out. I'll give him a shout out. It goes to the physical part. You're building these programs to make sure that everyone can react. Well, if they can't receive the training, so if you're doing a digital training or you're having, or you're doing a conference, if you're not making sure that that information that you're trying to get out is accessible to everyone, then it's kind of pointless. Let's talk Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So a lot of great content is coming out, right? Great images, great posters, digital posters, pictures, and video. Well, if the picture has something that really needs to be consumed, right? If the point that you're trying to get across is in that image, you're missing a pretty big population if it doesn't have alternate text. So again, I'm not only talking about, I'm just using screen reader users because I think it kind of helps people understand that the solutions that are being used need to have accessibility and be able to have it, because if they're not designed or developed to do that, no matter what it is, the training, the documentation, then the people can't use it. And the second I found that out, I'm like, wait, not everyone's knowing how to respond to a disaster. Like, that's a problem.
Well,
So
that's a good question. How did you come across that and realize that, hey, there's a significant or a good portion of people that really aren't, we're not reaching.
I lucked into it. My new role. So I became the director of security at DQ Systems, which they are a digital accessibility services and solutions company. And in my role of being the director, I started looking at security differently because I have to make sure that all of my security solutions are accessible, that my policies are accessible, that my training is accessible. When I send an email newsletter talking about the latest threats or the cool things that we've done, if I use images, that I make sure that there's alternative text. If I'm doing campaigns, right, especially for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, that the content is consumable to whom I'm serving.
Right. I think a lot of people tend to, when they think of accessibility, they think of the physical. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. When I think of physical, I'm thinking how we get into buildings, ramps, those kind of things. Is that correct?
Yes. So let's go to the digital part.
Yeah.
So if I'm a blind user and I'm told that I need to log into this website to do the training, right? And I go to the username and password element, right? The section. If it wasn't coded correctly to provide like what that element is, and because if not, it's just gonna be two boxes on it. It's just gonna say, oh, this is a bot. Like, it's not gonna know what that box means. So then they're gonna have to ask someone else to help, like, where on this is, because my screen reader can't pick up where I can put in my password, username and password. Well, if they have no one around, then they're going to have to use other technologies. So there are technologies now where sighted users can be used from like a crowdsourcing app. And it's a beautiful app, Be My Eyes, and it helps people get connected with sighted users to help them. But then they get their cell phones on their work login, and now someone in some country, we don't know where they are,
Yeah.
now has that information. And now the vulnerable are more vulnerable.
Yeah. And I guess we can't also assume that somebody who is blind or something else automatically has somebody within reach who can help anyway.
Right. And let me make sure that I'm also fulfilling the spectrum of accessibility. So here's the other portion of policies that's a huge topic that I'm trying to get across is the policies need to be consumable. Most people don't know what the frick we're talking about. I mean, you almost have to have some type of knowledge of what we do in cybersecurity to truly consume a policy. That's a problem. They don't read, they read this once a year if we're lucky. Like, let's be real, right?
Yeah.
So let's make sure that it's consumable. So then everyone actually gets it. So policies need to make sure that they also are at a cognitive level that they can be, and these plans, these disaster recovery plans, are understandable, right?
Right. Now, is that all policies or just policies that are relatable to cyber or business?
I would say all, because how do you expect, like, to me, most organizations are run by policies and procedures. If they're unable to read that policy, but you expect them to do that for their employment, how does that work?
Right.
Yeah. So I would say all policies, not just cybersecurity, but my focus is the fact that most, I think most people will have the same realization that I did. We're not protecting everyone. We have open risk right now that no GRC tool is tracking. No one's tracking this. Not most companies are not tracking the risk that if the security programs, not just technical like software, the program itself to include disaster recovery and business continuity, if they're not made accessible and the people can use them, especially in time of distress, how it's already going to be a high energy situation, and depending on what it is, right? Now throw into it that they never even got the content. They don't know how to respond because, oh, whoops, I have a Mac. But a thumbs up just went on the screen for people tracking along, and I didn't mean to do that, but I'll let you take that. Sorry.
That's okay. So how does leadership then, or what do they need to start doing or stop doing so that accessibility gets a wider recognition and understanding? Because I can guarantee most organizations, they may be addressing accessibility on some levels, because I know in Canada it is the law
Yes.
for new facilities and some other initiatives, but I can guarantee that still means the majority of organizations probably aren't considering this. So what do they need to start doing or stop doing to bring this to the forefront?
I think specifically for security practitioners, I think they need to completely relook at all of their solutions and make sure that they are usable. You don't need to send a user feedback form that says, hey, what is your disability, or what accessibility do you need, or a solution do you need to do this? Rather, hey, we're relooking at all of our security solutions, and send it to everyone. We're relooking at all of our security solutions to ensure that they're usable. If you have had any issues with this tool in the past or currently are having this issue, please reach out to the security team, because we want to reevaluate our solutions to ensure that everyone is secured equally.
I think you brought an interesting point there. You mentioned sending out a survey. If you
Mhm.
already haven't been addressing accessibility, sending out a survey doesn't fix that, because the people who are already having a challenge would have a challenge with the survey.
Potentially, if the survey is inaccessible, I would make sure that the survey is accessible. That's a great point.
Yeah, that it would
I would
be
make
kind of
sure.
counterintuitive. Like,
No, you're right. And another point I would add is not everyone's going to fill out the survey. I mean, that's a known fact. But I think it's a starting point, because the other point is most people, from what I'm learning, most people that are going through this, that truly need things to be accessible, they're so used to it not happening that, to me, I would hope that if they start seeing these, they're like, oh, they want to help me. They actually want to help me. Because right now, unfortunately, and I know, and I'm not trying to call anyone out, and we're trying to do the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing for 25 years,
do
and I wasn't.
you
So
think some people are afraid to point out that, hey, I need assistance with reading my screen or whatever the case may be? Do you think that's something that people still are afraid to do? Because
not afraid, but they shouldn't have to do it. And I'll give an example. I just talked to a leader that actually is going through this. So on top of, yes, needing accessibility to do their role, that's not there right now. So they just have to do their role. They have to do their role. They have to do their life. They have to be part of their family. Maybe they don't have time to champion for this. And I get that. Like, yes, people should, if they need help, they should ask. But that's a common problem in everything, right? Like we say that constantly. If we watch a documentary and something sad happened, like they should have just asked. Well, you weren't in their situation, right? Like you. And to me, here's another thing, and this might not be a popular opinion, but most things in the digital space are not accessible beyond just cybersecurity. Accessibility is not a feature request. So, you know, that's essentially like, well, they need to ask us for it to be accessible. It does not work. Your website does not work with their assistive technology. They can't use what you're selling them or what you've sold their company that they work for.
right.
So why is that a feature request? It's broken.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know,
Mhm.
you didn't get it because you didn't ask for it. Well, uh, if you're not, that kind of says you weren't even considering accessibility to start with, right? Like, it's
Right.
not something that you're either selling your customers, and it's probably not something you're even doing within your own organization.
Both. Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
it's interesting. So how do you go about changing that? You know,
Awareness.
we've got about 4 or 5 minutes till we take a break, but do you have any ideas on how do we start that change?
Awareness. Awareness. It has to start with awareness and education. I think what needs to truly happen is all cybersecurity education programs, regardless if they're in the universities or not, um, on top of actually making their training accessible, they need to start teaching about the importance of accessibility and how it intersects with accessibility, because it 100% does. If the solution's not accessible, they're going to circumvent it. They have to. They're trying to do their job, or they're trying to live their life. They're going to, they've hit adversity their whole life, or since they've become newly disabled. They're already doing that. Let's stop adding to that.
I couldn't help but think that maybe the word biases cropped up as you were
Mm-hmm.
talking in my
Mm-hmm.
head here. Do you think that maybe for those that aren't aware of accessibility, we have a potential bias or assuming that if I hear nothing, there's no issue. If I see
Yes,
nothing, there's no issue.
I did for 25 years. I know it. Like, I've knowingly bought software. I've knowingly rolled out software, and I didn't ensure that to include people with disabilities in my user testing? No, I didn't. I should have, and I will now, but
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And
And that's the thing. We
yeah.
don't, but in those, in all those courses, right? I don't want to say names or universities, but we don't learn about it. They'll teach us about security culture, right? And security awareness, and you can get certified in security culture and awareness. Are they, and I might be wrong, but are we talking about accessibility? Especially since our field, and as much as every field, we're really pushing DEI, right? And inclusion in our field. Well, let's truly do it then. That's my, now that I become aware, I want to help others not go as long that I did. And hopefully we can push this for change.
It's kind of like having a new house and cybersecurity. We're focusing on, making sure the front door is locked and all secure, but completely forgetting about the windows. They're wide open, not locked at all, because we're not talking about them. We're all talking about the entrance and the exits,
Right.
and completely forgetting about the windows.
Right.
That's what I was thinking there as you were saying that.
And on the door key, there's probably not Braille on it, so it's probably not accessible. How do they know what number is what? Unless there's audio that tells them what it is, or they can use it with their phone.
I remember in a past life, many cough cough, many years ago, we used to have a Braille. When I worked in restaurants, we used to have a Braille menu, and I
Yeah.
have not seen one in a very long time.
I haven't either.
But we had one when way back when, and I was surprised. And now talking with you, that's just kind of clicked in my head. Going, did it just go away? Did we just
Well,
brush it off?
I think technology potentially, because if it's also assuming that everyone has a cell phone, right? So that's not really inclusive. But there are applications that you can just hover it over and can tell, or you can use Be My Eyes and have someone help you with the menu. But yes, I think the option should be there. I'm not negating that. I'm just stating that probably because there's technology that can help.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe the next time I go in a restaurant, I'm going to ask just out of
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah,
See
just
if
out
it
of
exists.
curiosity.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I think I'll ask that. Well, we've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking about accessibility in cyber and our other resilience and business continuity plans with Justin Merhoff, and we will be right back. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.